Will the meeting please come to order? Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will you please remain standing and raise your right hand for the oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Connecticut as long as you continue a citizen thereof, and that you will faithfully discharge according to law the duties as a member of the representative town meeting of the town of Greenwich to the best of your ability, so help you God? I do. Congratulations. Will district chairs have any members who come in late come forward to have the oath administered so they will be able to vote tonight? Thank you. Item 2 now comes before us, to elect a moderator. Are there any nominations? Yes, I recognize Ed Didakis, District 1.
Thank you, Mrs. Butkins, members of the town meeting. I rise this evening to nominate Tom Byrne for re-election as RTM moderator. Now, I know the job of moderator looks easy. You know it's far from that. First, it requires that you know a great deal about all the various matters that appear on our agenda every month. Second, you have to have a strong knowledge of Robert's Rules of Orders. And you've got to know where to flip in that really thick book mighty fast if somebody challenges one of your rulings. Third, you need to have a good working relationship with the senior officials in town, including the first selectman, the chairman of the BET and Board of Education, as well as the town attorney. And finally, you need to be able to manage and work with 232 strong, diverse, independent personalities. And that would be you fine folks. Tom does all that, and he does it well. But beyond that, he treats every single member of this body with respect and consideration, assuring that their point of view is presented at our meetings. And he has to do it all while keeping an eye on the clock. Our moderator is also the public advocate for our organization. When media matters arise, Tom is always there to explain how the RTM works, points out what an important part it plays in the democratic process of Greenwich, and when needed, sets the record straight. As a member of the Claims Committee, I also get to see Tom in private in his role as chairman of that committee. He is frequently leading the discussion, analyzing potential liability, and debating strategies for the town to prevail in these lawsuits. At those meetings, you can clearly see his commitment to the best interests of Greenwich. Of course, it is that kind of commitment that has been the hallmark of his tenure as moderator. Now look, I'm under no illusions. Tom isn't perfect. But if he put more items on the consent calendar, I think he'd be practically perfect. Tom Byrne has done an outstanding job as our moderator and will continue to do so. That's why I am delighted to nominate him.
Is there a second? Are there any other nominations? I will entertain a motion that nominations be closed. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The motion has carried. Will the district chairs please mark the voting cards? Tom Byrne, moderator, and poll their district. Yes, Betsy Fruman? You have 3 columns. The first column is yes. No, we have to go by name. You have to put Tom Byrne. That's what the rules say. Right. So put Tom Byrne, and you mark it. It's you only use 1 column. We have 1 nomination. So you cannot vote no. A no vote is not counted. You cannot vote, but I don't think you can vote no. Correct, yes. We can defer to the town attorney. Can you abstain?
Good evening. The simple answer is no. You cannot vote no. Under Robert's Rules on page 114, which is in lines 1 through 5, in elections, for and against spaces or boxes should not be used in elections. They are applicable only with respect to votes on motions. In an election, a voter can vote against one candidate only by voting for another who has been nominated or by writing in the name of another candidate. So it's not a yes or no question. The only option is to vote for Tom Byrne. Or not vote.
Will the districts please proceed to vote? District 2, are you through voting? Tom Byrne has been elected moderator. You want to be sworn in? All right, 1 sec.
All right.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Good evening, all. I have some thank yous. First, foremost, I want to thank my wife, Megan, who's sitting in the back. Who has allowed me to pursue my passion of serving on the RTM and moderator all these years. You know, when I first was elected moderator, Megan and I had 4 children under the age of 16 at home. 3 boys, 12 and 6, and our youngest, a girl, 4. The 16-year-old is turning 40 this year. And the 4-year-old is midway through her second deployment overseas in 2 years as a Navy pilot. Keeping her mother awake nights. You've done a great job, Megan. Thank you for allowing me to pursue this labor of love. And I want to thank Ed Dodakis for his kind words. It's an honor to have been nominated by a 40-year member who I have served with on the Claims Committee for a long time, and who is passionate about advocating for what he believes is best for the town. Thank you, Ed, for all you do for District 1, the Claims Committee, and the RTM. And I want to thank you all sincerely for the privilege you give me to serve as moderator. I am even more excited today than I was upon first becoming moderator. I think I was more scared than excited. The energy and enthusiasm that all of you bring to the RTM, including our newest members, is greater than ever before. We welcome the new members and invite you to reach out to us returning members with any and all questions you might have. Several aspects of this job have changed considerably since I first became moderator. The level of internal communication has increased exponentially with the aid of email, websites, internet access in town buildings during our district committee and full RTM meetings. I am blessed to work with Alexis Vulgaris, who has allowed me to concentrate on the big picture of running our meeting while she coordinates all the details that go on behind the scenes. Problems that crop up in various offices of Town Hall that require RTM action, and coordination among our committees to organize review of the controversial call items. She's the most passionate student of parliamentary procedure I've ever encountered. Her incisive questions about various rulings and anticipated problems have made me more knowledgeable of parliamentary procedure. Bottom line, I am very lucky to be backed up by Alexis. We make a great team, and I look forward to working with her for 2 more years. And we have important business to do. The first order of business is to meet with the RTM leadership to coordinate our approach to these important issues. With the help of Alexis and Kimberly Spezzano, we have reserved the evening of Thursday, February 20th for the meeting with district and committee chairs. I'll forward more details soon, but please note that date, February 20th. A month later, on March 19th, we will make ourselves available to the membership for an evening we call Ask the Moderators. This is an opportunity for new and returning members to get the answers to any questions you might have about RTM operations. Second, in one form or another, we will continue our effort to explore how technology can be used to enhance our work. We look forward to an exciting new term with a new first selectman and a kind of new BET. As we address the big issues facing the town, let us vow together to encourage full and fair debate at all levels of our organization, being respectful to those with differing viewpoints than our own. And finally, I thank you once again for the privilege of serving as RTM moderator. All right, yes, Mr. Tudhill, item 3 now comes before us. Lauren O'Keefe, District 9.
Mr. Moderator, fellow RTM members, I would like to nominate Alexis Vulgaris for Moderator Pro Tem.
If you could just pull that microphone a little closer, thank you.
I have had the pleasure of working with Ms. Vulgaris for the past 5 years in the Health and Human Services Committee, with which she is chair. She runs a great meeting, encouraging participation from all. She's engaging, organized, interested, and informed. She is involved, as you can see from her CV, in several committees. As we hear from her committee reports, Alexis covers every detail. In her last 2 years as Moderator Pro Tem, Alexis has demonstrated reliability, clear thinking, collaboration, and anticipation. She works well with the moderator, and I think she should be given the opportunity to continue the fine work that she's doing now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? Hearing none, I ask the district chairs to please mark your voting cards. Again, in the first column, Alexis Vulgaris. As was explained earlier, this is, you either vote for the candidate or you don't vote. So if you would please proceed to poll your delegation. I'm sorry, is there a hand up? Second. Pardon me? Second. Second what? Oh, you want to second the nomination? No, we don't. Nominations don't need to be seconded. So are there any further nominations? All right, so I am closing the nominations. I'm asking the district chairs to please mark your voting cards. Alexis Vulgaris in the first column. Proceed to poll your delegation. Yes, Vulgaris is spelled V-O-U-L-G-A-R-I-S.
Point of order. Rules, page 4, voting procedure. Nominations shall be made from the floor and seconded.
All right, Robert's Rules does not require a second. If our rules say that, that nomination has been moved and seconded. Thank you. We are now in the process of voting for Moderator Pro Tem. We will await the result of that vote before proceeding further. All right, our practice has been, while we are voting for Moderator Pro Tem, we have our committee and district chairs come up and introduce themselves. So we can start with the districts in whatever order you get up here, but I invite the district chairs first to come up and introduce themselves, to be followed by the committee chairs. Mr. Lee, Frederick Lee, District 1. And what we typically do is introduce the officers of the district and committee. So, you know, I am the chair and the vice chair and secretary. Thank you.
Frederick Lee, District 1, Chairman for the district. Thank you.
Your vice chair and secretary?
Vice Chair is Ryan Okra. Secretary is Judy Gross. Secretary is Judy Gross. Goss. The Vice Chair is Ryan Okra.
Good evening. Happy New Year to everyone. My name is Wilma Nisinovich. I'm Chair of District 2. Our Vice Chair is Laura Gladstone, and our Secretary is Aldo Pasquarello.
I'm running out of order. Candace Garthwaite, District 6. Vice Chair is Victoria Martin Young, and our Secretary is Victoria Quake.
Adam Rothman, District 3 Chair. Our Vice Chair is Tom Cornelius, and our Secretary is Rosna Castro.
Good evening. I'm Bob McKnight, Chairman of District 4. Our Vice Chair, Sam Tam, and our Secretary is Lucy Von Brockel.
Tom Broadhurst, District 5. Vice Chair is Nancy Cooper. Secretary is Jenny Baird.
Hello, I'm Wynne McDaniel, Chair of District 7. Our Vice Chair is Henry Orfis, and our Secretary is Jill Cobbs. Thank you.
Hello, Cheryl Moss, Chair of District 8. Molly Salibi is the vice chair, and Allison Solar is the secretary. Thank you.
District 9, Glenville Pembroke. We voted to once again use the same officers. Betsy Fruman, I'm Betsy Fruman, chair. I wrote down their names. Carol Zarelli is vice chair, and Jonathan Shankman is secretary.
I'm Larry Malkin, the Vice Chair of District 10. Our Chairman is Jerry Anderson, and our Secretary is Louisa Stone.
Good evening. I'm Susan Fahey, Chair of District 11. Our Vice Chair is Dana Newman, and our Secretary is David Oliver. Thank you.
District 12, I'm Barbara Hinman, the vice chair. Our chairman is Bob May, and our secretary is Maria Menon.
Thank you very much. Our committees? I invite all the committee chairs to come on down.
Good evening again. Bob McKnight, Chairman of your Appointments Committee. Our Vice Chair is Ed Lopez. Our Secretary is Jude Collins.
Good evening. Catherine Lobalbo, Park and Rec Committee. Our Vice Chair is Victoria Quake, and our Secretary is Catherine Ashworth.
Good evening. I'm Mike Basham, Chairman of Finance. Our Vice Chair is Brooks Harris, and our Secretary is Jane Sprung.
Good evening, Alexis Vulgaris, Chair of Health and Human Services, and I'm delighted that we have Bill Galvin returning as our Vice Chair and Patty Roberts as our Secretary. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Spilo. I'm from District 11. I'm Chair of Public Works. Our Vice Chair is Jill Cobbs, and our Secretary is Phil Dodson.
Good evening. I'm Kip Bergweiger, Chair of the Legislative and Rules Committee. Our Vice Chair is Katie Hines. Our Secretary is Rick Marganot.
Good evening. I'm Kimberly Salib from District 11. I'm chairing transportation, and the vice chair is Don Wyko, and we're still in need of a secretary.
Kim Blank from District 7. I'm chairing education. We have the dream team back together again with Jennifer Freitag from District 8 as vice chair and Susan Fahey from District 11 as secretary.
Good evening. Lucia Jansen from District 7, Chair of the Budget Overview Committee. Welcoming back Dan Osmer for Vice Chair, and we're thankful someone has become a permanent secretary, Peg Heppelman from District 11. Thank you, Peg.
Hi, Lucy Von Braukel from, I'm Secretary of Land Use Committee. Peter Berg is Chair, and Ellen Brennan Galvin is Vice Chair.
Richard Newman, Town Services, and I have Paul Olmsted as my secretary and John Mastracchio as my vice chairman again. Thank you.
Great. Congratulations to all of our officers. All right, I have the result of the vote on item 3. Congratulations to Alexis Vulgaris, who was elected with 186 votes. Alexis Vulgaris.
So I wanted to thank you for giving me this opportunity to serve again as your moderator pro tem. I've had this position for one term previously, so 2 years, and I've had a tremendous amount of fun getting to work with all of you and also getting to work with all of the external stakeholders, the town clerk, the BET, the First Selectman's office, new members, old members, constituents, and trying to figure out answers to all the questions that you have. Many of them are pertinent and some of them are really wacky, but I try and answer them anyway, like how do you get town hall party tickets and where can I get a dog license, but I try. I'm a little bit better with answering the parliamentary ones, though, the parliamentary procedures ones. So I really look forward to working with you again over the 2 years. The moderator and I, as you've heard, we not only work very well together, but we are trying to be very receptive to the learning that old members and new members want to do. One of the things that we learned from governance was people are very eager to learn about the RTM and learn about process. So I hope that with our continued series of Ask the Moderator, you'll come and you'll participate and you'll ask us any question you might have. And hopefully we can answer that. And I look forward to working with you for another term. Thank you.
All right. As all members have received a copy of the proposed minutes of our December meeting, the reading of the minutes will be omitted. We do have one correction. This was on page 6, where Mr. Tuthill made a motion to limit debate. Mr. Rainey, I know we had a standing vote at some point. You want to come forward and just tell us what those changes were? Then Mr. Rainey had moved to amend, and this says upon a voice vote, but that's not exactly accurate.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I think there were 3 changes. One, Mr. Tuttle's original motion did not have a vote itself.
Right.
2, my amendment was passed by a rising vote. And 3, then the amended Tuttle motion was passed by a voice vote.
All right, so those changes again, Mr. Tuthill made a motion. Before any action was taken on that, Mr. Rainey moved to amend it so that the 3 minutes would be per motion. And we took a rising vote on that and it carried. And then we took a voice vote on the motion to limit as amended. So we will make that change. Are there any other proposed changes to our minutes? Hearing none, the minutes as amended stand adopted upon unanimous consent. Mr. McKnight, recognizing you as chair of our appointments committee, has some information for the membership.
Your Appointments Committee has been recruiting RTM members to serve on the Labor Contracts Committee, the Claims Committee, and as our representative to the Harbor Management Commission. The deadline for applications has been extended until noon Friday, January 24th. All interested may contact me by email, our secretary, Jude Collins, or go on the internet. Thank you.
Mr. McKnight, do we know how many applications have been filed to date? If not, we can pass that around. But
yeah, for the claims.
Claims requires a total of 11 in
Right.
addition to the moderator.
Labor contracts, we need 9, and harbor management, 1.
Do you know how many have filed for claims?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8.
Oh, 8. So
far.
So there's 3
Right.
vacancies just by the numbers.
We're expecting at least a couple more coming in.
All right. And if anybody, we want to fill those up. If anyone has questions about the Claims Committee, it's an important one. Please feel free to contact me or any of the members, the incumbent members. Thank you. Are there any other administrative matters before we proceed to number 4? All right. Item 4 now comes before us. Kip Bergweger, Chair of our Legislative and Rules Committee. I'm sorry. What? I'm going to take 4 up and then we'll go to the consent calendar, which starts with 5.
Mr. Moderator, members of the RTM, the Legislative and Rules Committee met on Monday, January 13th in the Evaristo room. For 2 of the items, we had a full complement of all 12 districts, and then 1 district had to leave, and from that point on, we did 11. On item 4, we voted on legal
So
order.
if you could just present it, you know, Doug Wells used
Oh,
to do
yes,
the favor.
yes. Pardon me. The moderator asked me to do this and I forgot. Resolved that the regular meeting dates for the 2020-2021 RTM term shall be set forth below, and that these dates shall preempt any provisions of the RTM rules that may be in conflict for the 2020-2021 term only. It is as it appears in the call.
Thank you. Is there a second? All right. I've gotten some inquiries about why this is here. The dates that you see in this are the dates called for by our rules. But our rules also acknowledge that there are conflicts with religious holidays in September sometimes, and also April, and with public school vacations. So rather than those requests to change dates being brought up close to the meeting date, we decided much better to give everyone advance notice. We put this on the call of our first meeting of the term, and if we're going to make changes, we should make them now. So, you know, that is why this is here. We may amend our rules by majority vote. So may we have the committees that would like to report on this? It was referred to all committees. Alexis Vulgaris, Chair of our Health and Human Services Committee.
Good evening. Health and Human Services took this up, and we have a number of amendments that we'd like to offer at the appropriate time. April 2020, which conflicts with Greenwich Public School, and then April 8th and 9th, which are not full RTM meetings but are district meetings, which conflict with Passover, and then moving into April 2021, that full meeting conflicts with public school break, and then there's a date in September that conflicts with Yom Kippur in 2021. So at the appropriate time, we'd be happy to offer those amendments.
Thank you. Kimberly Blank, Chair of our Education Committee.
Education also took this up, and we noticed the conflict with the school spring break, so suggested that we voted to amend to move those meetings to the week later, but suggest that we still keep our committee meetings and district meetings the week before, so there will be that 1 week gap during the spring break.
Thank you.
At the last appointments meeting, a motion was proposed to change the April 13th meeting to April 20th due to the public school vacation. The revised motion was then passed by a vote of 11-1-0.
Thank you. Mr. Bergweger.
The Legislative and Rules Committee voted on legal order 1200.
Thank you.
Catherine LaBalbo reporting for Park and Rec. We took up the item, we made a motion to amend, and that passed 1200. The item number 4 as amended was 1200.
Thank you.
The Transportation Committee voted 10-0-0, but we also discussed the April meeting that needs to be moved because of the public school vacation. Thank you.
Mr. Newman with Town Services.
Town Services, aware of the amendments that were going to be made, voted 11-0-0 with District 5 absent.
Mr. Basham with Finance.
Finance voted 12-0-0 as presented in the call.
Lucia Jansen with BOC.
BOC voted 12-0-0 as presented in the call.
Thank you. Ms. Vulgaris.
On behalf of Health and Human Services, we'd like to offer the following amendments to our 2020-2021 term. So the first...
May I suggest that you just do the RTM meeting dates first?
Sure.
Because I think I heard a difference of opinion on the others.
Sure. So our first would be to move the full RTM meeting, which is scheduled for Monday, April 13th, which conflicts with the Greenwich Public School break, to Monday, April 20th, 2020. So the following Monday. Our second full RTM meeting amendment would be to change the April 2021, which is April 12th, 2021, to, again, the following Monday, which is April 19th, 2021.
All right, is there any objection to those proposed changes? Hearing none, that motion to amend may be adopted upon unanimous consent.
Okay. So then, taking into account that April 8th of this year and April 9th of this year, which would be the Wednesday and Thursday district meetings, conflict with Passover. And the reason Health and Human Services thought that this was important to take up is because members are, it counts towards your attendance, whether or not you attend a district and a full committee meeting or full meeting, and we didn't want anyone to be penalized for observing a religious holiday. So our proposal was to move all of the standing committees and district meetings to the week prior to the April 8th. So I'll just read it to you and you can decide what you want to do. So it would be Monday standing committee meetings would meet on Monday, March 30th, 2020. Tuesday standing committee meetings would meet on Tuesday, March 31st. The Wednesday district meetings would happen on April 1st, and the Thursday district meetings would happen on April 2nd. There really was no other place to put these meetings except moving them 1 week prior if you wanted to allow our members who observe Passover to not have a conflict.
Does that require a change in the call deadline?
The change in the call deadline is required for when I think what we've just moved are the Monday, April 13th and the April 20th and the April 19th meeting. So those call deadlines, would you like me to read the revised call deadlines for those?
What you're saying is the committee meetings now will be a week earlier.
But it won't matter because the revised call deadline for our April meeting becomes March 20th, 2020. And we would be meeting March 30th, March 31st, April 1st, April 2nd.
All right. Are there any other changes to committee and district schedule?
Yes. So that's 2020. Would you like me to read 2021 now?
Let's get a sense of
Okay.
what the membership feels about this. Does everyone understand what is being proposed? All right. Is there objection to that proposal? Did I hear a yes? All right. So then we're going to have to take a vote on this. Michael Mason, Chair of the BET.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Moderator, I'd like to just point out that by moving that up to March 30th, you're getting into the public hearing for the full budget, and there's also a public workshop on the budget, which would be Monday the 30th and Tuesday the 31st. So
Those would be public hearings
one of them is a public hearing and the other is a public meeting. And they're
on the
both
budget.
both specific for the fiscal 21 budget.
Okay. All right, so first of all, we have a motion to amend item 4 as with respect to moving district and committee meetings in 2020 for the April meeting. Why don't we go ahead and get the other proposal you have?
So the last amendment that we would like to offer occurs in September of 2021. And the Thursday, I believe it's Thursday, September 16th, 2021, conflicts with Yom Kippur. So what we are recommending is all district meetings would occur on Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. So they'd occur in the same week, but everybody would be meeting on the same evening of that week.
All right, I think you might have said the 15th twice.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is it Thursday the 15th?
Thursday the 16th.
Oh, then I misheard you, I'm sorry. Okay. All right, is there any objection to that? Hearing none, that motion to amend may be adopted upon unanimous consent. That moves in 2021 all district meetings to September
Wednesday.
15th.
Correct.
Okay. So now,
I think that Wednesday, September 15th is actually also a religious observance, grace service, so I think that Wednesday is actually more problematic because at least the Thursday night happens after Sunday.
so what should we do? Shall we leave that for this month, and if you think we need to take it up and change something, we'll give that some thought. Apparently that was unknown. So let's leave that proposal for the September 2021 district meetings for another date, unless someone has a solution to this.
Can I just say what we did? This happened in 2018, you may recall as well, and we can do it. It's not a problem. We can just move everything like we're doing for the March 30th, April 2nd. We can move everything a week before, and then you just have a gap between your district and committee and your thing. So it's very flexible.
Mr. Dudakis?
You asked if someone had another idea. I actually do. Why don't we just let the districts decide what they want to do? Some may want to move to a Wednesday night before, some may want to move the week before, rather than legislate it, just let.
Well, the problem with that is we can't have the districts meeting before the committees. So if the committees currently are scheduled for that Monday and Tuesday, it makes no sense for a district to go the prior week. All right, I think it's sufficiently cloudy that let's let someone take another look at that. So let's take up the motion to amend the April district and committee meeting proposal to the March 30, 31, the week of March 30. Discussion on that motion to amend. No one? Okay, you've heard the BET conflict with those dates. There's a public meeting where they're going to be taking up budget and a public hearing asking for input. No discussion? All right, let's take a record vote on this. This is a motion to move this year's April district and committee meetings 1 week earlier. If you are in favor of doing that, you vote yes. If you are opposed, you vote no. Does everyone understand? So I ask the district chairs to please mark your voting cards. Health and Human Services, motion to amend item 4, and proceed to poll your delegation. All right, we can proceed with our meeting. Once we get the result of this vote, I will then come back to it and we'll take a final vote on it as amended after we know what your preference is for those district and committee meetings. Okay, so the district chair should be now conducting a vote on the Health and Human Services motion to amend item 4 in regard to just the April 2020 district and committee meetings. All right. Item 5 now comes before us. I did inform our district and committee chairs that based upon the reports received, I would recommend that we put item 5 and item 8 on the consent calendar. So at this point, I will proceed to do that. I am now, under our rules, designating item 5 for our consent calendar. If it remains there, the only thing you will hear tonight is what I say now. We do not take committee reports or have discussion on consent calendar items. Item 5 is a resolution to appoint Donna La Violette to the Flood and Erosion Control Board as an alternate member with a term beginning upon appointment and expiring October 31, 2023. I am also placing item 8 on our consent calendar. That is a resolution appropriating the sum of $25,000 for the purpose of purchasing an engine for the Shellfish Commission boat. Those two items are now designated by me for our consent calendar. Is there any objection to those items being on our consent calendar? Will the district chairs please mark your voting cards, consent calendar items 5 and 8, and proceed to poll your delegation. All right, we have two votes pending. I think I'm going to wait the vote on item 4. So I ask the district chairs to please expedite that vote on the motion to amend. And we remind the district chairs, any members who come in who have not been sworn in, if you could direct them up front, and that we will take care of that. All right, we have the result of the vote on the motion to amend item 4 to move district and committee meetings a week earlier. Those in favor, 185, opposed 9, abstaining 4. That motion to amend is carried. All right, we'll now take up a vote on item 4 as amended. Mr. Tudhill? Mr. Tuttle, I cannot hear you.
Please give us a new set of dates when you send out the information for the March meeting.
Yes, the minutes will reflect any changes that we make. And the website will reflect it. Thank you, Mr. Tuttle. All right. Will the district chairs, is there any further discussion on item 4? Will the district chairs please mark your voting cards? Item 4 is amended, and proceed to poll your delegation. All right. Item 6 now comes before us. May we have the resolution on that item? Bob Brady, who's chair of the Technology Advisory Group.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Congratulations on your reappointment or
Thank
election. Members, guests, item 6 is a resolution to amend the RTM rules to create a permanent technology committee. It is as it appears in the call.
Thank you. Will a member please move the adoption of the resolution on item 6? Resolution on item 6 has been moved and seconded. May we have the reports of the committees that consider this, beginning with our Health and Human Services Committee. Alexis Vulgaris.
Good evening. The Health and Human Services Committee met last Tuesday, where we were joined by the Parks and Recreation Committee, as well as the following guests: Bob Brady, Chairman of TAG, Kimberly Spizzano, Assistant Town Clerk, and Tom Klein, our Director of IT. I'd first like to say that the members of the Health and Human Services Committee value technology, and we appreciate the role that good technology plays in the RTM. We would also like to thank the members who served on the Technology Advisory Group last term. The January meeting was the second time that Health and Human Services had assembled a panel consisting of all the relevant stakeholders to present this item to us. The first was in December. Mr. Brady explained to the committees that there had been some iteration of TAG dating back to 1998, and it is the desire of the latest Technology Advisory Group to become a permanent standing committee. When asked by a delegate, quote, "What problem are we trying to solve by creating such a committee?" Mr. Brady responded with, "At this point, there aren't any serious problems." It appears that a chief driver for the push to become a permanent special committee is to eliminate the need to have the group reactivated every 2 years by the moderator. It should be noted that the moderator has gone on record as stating he would reactivate a technology advisory group this term for any member who is interested in serving on such a committee or such an advisory group. Tom Klein explained that the IT department is designed specifically to work with departments, and his point of contact for the RTM's technological needs is the town clerk's office, which acts as a secretary for the RTM. He emphasized that the IT department is tasked with working with the town clerk's office to provide technical support, and that it would be impractical for a group of volunteers to recommend and evaluate technology initiatives to either the clerk or the IT department. He then went on to explain in detail the process by which he budgets for a technology purchase or rollout and the approvals that are needed from the first selectman, the town administrator, the BET. Finally, Mr. Klein stressed that everything that is required to be on the RTM website is handled by the town clerk. Kimberly Spizzano explained that the clerk's office works with IT to identify ways to make record keeping for the RTM more efficient. They are currently investigating having each district use an iPad to record votes. It's in its early developmental phases. And she is open to hosting a workshop for RTM members who want to learn how to navigate the new website. It was also noted that if the group remains an advisory group, It can leverage the expertise of both RTM members and non-RTM members, which would seem to make the group more flexible and allow for more people to participate in how they want to structure technology or use technology. One example of such an arrangement is when TAG was piloting the call for full RTM meetings, the members working the projector felt isolated from their districts because they sat alone at a table in the front. One possible solution is to invite non-members, perhaps high school students who are looking for community service hours, who would be interested in manning that projector. Another important thing that Mr. Klein mentioned was that the old RTM website was highly customizable, but now that the new RTM website is part of the larger town web platform Civic Plus, we, the RTM, are not in a position to customize the site. We are bound by the same resources and constraints that all of our town departments, boards, and commissions are faced with. This seemed to be in direct conflict with one of the proposed functions of a technology advisory committee, which is to, quote, evaluate and recommend new technologies, processes, and practices that improve the efficiency of the RTM. For all of those reasons, the Health and Human Services Committee voted 4 in favor, 8 opposed, 0 abstentions to maintain the current structure of TAG and not recommend that this becomes a permanent special committee of the RTM. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Basham with the report of the Finance Committee. Ms. Vulgaris?
One of the beauties of following Alexis is she's very comprehensive in her report. Finance met Monday night. We took up item 6 as presented to us on the call. We did have the governance committee there represented by Josh Brown and Alexis Vulgaris, who went through their issues they had with it from a governance perspective. We also had Kimberly Spezzano and Tom Klein. Kimberly is assistant town clerk. Tom heads the IT department. They brought us up to date on their issues associated with this proposal. During the course of our debate, it was noted that we have this new Civics Plus platform that we rolled out for the town, the technology platform that we rolled out in October of 2018. And we now have a very relatively robust, will be robust RTM website on there. We've all been told we have to nominate content stewards for our committees and for our districts, who will be responsible for keeping the various pages for the districts and the committees up to date. So there's a lot of information there, both for members as well as our constituents. We thought, based upon a lot of the conversation that took place, that we're probably just as well served by assuming the moderator will reappoint the Technology Committee for the upcoming term. We feel that that's probably the most appropriate approach for us to take at this particular point, given all of the comments we heard from governance as well as IT and the town clerk's office. As a result, we voted 11-0 to reject the item as presented in the call. The one vote was District 4. They thought there might be some benefit associated with having a committee with more continuity to it, as opposed to having to be reappointed every term by the moderator.
Thank you. Kimberly Blank with the Education Committee report.
Education met on Monday, January 13th. Before our meeting, we received an amended version of this item. Our discussion and vote was on the amended version, which included changing the committee composition from 9 delegates and 4 alternates to 7 delegates, among other changes. Liz Perry, a member of last term's Technology Advisory Group, presented this item to us. Kimberly Spezzano of the Town Clerk's Office and Tom Klein from the IT Department also joined us to give us their perspectives on this item. Most of our discussions centered on whether or not there is a need for a technology committee of the RTM and what such a committee would do. The representatives from the town clerk and IT departments explained that they do not currently have budget resources to support significant changes to IT support for the RTM. Ms. Perry said that the purpose of an RTM technology committee would be primarily to support RTM members' use of current technology, such as the RTM tab on the town website, and to investigate potential additional uses of technology. Any changes or additional budget would have to be proposed and approved through the normal RTM and budget processes. Their role would be to be an intermediary between the RTM and the relevant town bodies on technology processes and practices for the RTM. We also discussed whether or not it's necessary to have a permanent committee versus continuing with the current structure of the Moderator's Advisory Group. It was noted that as a Moderator's Advisory Group, the process is more ad hoc. There is no guarantee that a moderator will create this group each term. In addition, last term's group didn't have to publish formal meeting reports or notice meetings in the same way as other committees, which led to a less structured process and retention of institutional memory. A permanent committee would have the same notice and reporting requirements of other RTM committees. After a lengthy discussion, we voted in favor of the amended version of this item 10-0, with districts 4 and 11 voting no. Those in support of this item felt that there have been long-standing needs regarding technology for the RTM and that we should institutionalize this properly with elected representatives who are interested in tackling these issues. Those opposed felt that there isn't a need to change from the current structure of a moderator's advisory group. They were concerned that there might not be a need for this committee in a few years, and that as a body we are good at adding committees but not at taking them away. They also felt that the new committee's charge was loosely defined and that it might start taking on issues that hadn't been delegated to it, such as oversight of department IT budgets, which are already under the purview of existing committees.
Thank you. Catherine LaBalbo, Chair of our Parks and Recreation Committee.
Park and Recreation took up this item with Health and Human Services. Thank Alexis for putting together the panel of TAG and the town clerk and the IT department, along with Alexis's input from the governance committee. There was lots of discussion. I won't repeat all of what Alexis put forth based on flexibility versus continuity. We value TAG, town clerk, and IT and all they've done for us to date, and hope that continues forward. We asked that if the town clerk and IT felt comfortable supporting the RTM as they are noted to do so by our rules, and they replied that they felt comfortable. The vote itself was 4-7-1 with District 12 abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you. Kip Bergweger with the Legislative and Rules Report.
Legislative and Rules met Monday on this matter. At this particular time of the meeting, we had 11 districts present. We had Brian Rainey from District 9, who is a member of the committee and is also a member of the Technical Advisory or Technology Advisory Group, and he was very involved in this item and gave us a fair amount of guidance. Some of us had received an email with proposed changes during the afternoon before the meeting. Others had not, and it was not clear to us exactly what the support for this email was. Were these changes proposed by the TAG, or were they just proposed by the individual? Also, the form of the proposal was not addressed by this email, but as written in the call, it creates a new Section C, except that there's already a Section C. So if it were adopted in its current form, there'd be two Section Cs in the same part of the rules, which would raise serious questions about the legal order. So we spent a fair amount of time trying to understand where the form of the document was and how it should be modified. We then got into some details as to the merits on the item, and some people thought that we would want to have people on the committee or on the group who were not necessarily RTM members, but who would have technical expertise that would be very valuable to the work of the committee. It was suggested that we could try this and perhaps put in a sunset clause so that it could be reviewed later. Some members of the committee believe that technology is a long-term matter, and we need to address and work on these items and to help the IT department, which is not well staffed on these issues. There are many other communities in Connecticut that are ahead of Greenwich on technology. After discussing the merits, we decided to make a motion to refer this back to the Technology Committee. We did not want to postpone it because postponing it would come back in its present form. But if we referred it back, we could correct and figure out exactly what is being proposed by the group and correct some of these format issues. So the vote to refer back to the tag was 9-2-0, with districts 3 and 11 voting no.
Thank you. Michael Spilo,
And
Chair of our...
I will make a motion at the appropriate time to refer it back.
Thank you. Michael Spilo, Chair of our Public Works Committee. Mr. Bergwager, could I see you for a minute?
Public Works heard about but did not get any changes to this item. Public Works did not get a presentation from anyone involved, and we weren't invited to the joint meeting held by other committees. Public Work members felt the item needed further review, and a motion was made to postpone the item. That motion carried 12-0-0. Thanks.
Mr. McKnight, with Chair of our Appointments Committee.
Yes, for the purpose of brevity, I'll not repeat what you've already heard. Expertise was offered by Ed Lopez, a current member of TAG, and Michael Spilo, a past member. Our committee was evenly divided as to need for an RTM permanent management of technology. The item failed 5-2-2.
Thank you. Kimberly Salib with the Transportation Committee report.
In the Transportation Committee, we had Jennifer Baird and Alan Small discuss their role on TAG and what they've done for the committee. Our vote was 7-3-0 with districts 2 and 6 absent and districts 1, 7, and 11 voting against.
Thank you. Richard Newman with the Town Services report.
Town Services invited Tom Klein from IT and Kim Spizzano from the clerk's office to help with the discussion. We had Brian Rainey, a Town Services member, representing the TAG group. Tom explained that our IT department is not structured to support RTM IT. They can't build software for projects. They are currently working with the clerk's office on projects using existing software, and that new projects will require software purchases and ongoing support, time, and dollars. Kim told us they have been working with IT for years on technology upgrades. They're currently using some of the original RTM website that Paul Curtis built, and they're trying to bring that in-house along with Tom Klein. She pointed out that the clerk's office must work within the charter and code, and they need to bring any changes. It was pointed out that the recent governance committee did not recommend changes to the moderator's tech advisory group. Town Service appreciates the work that the technology group has done and recommends to the moderator that he reestablish the group as they were previously, the moderator's technology advisory group, but not as a special permanent committee as outlined in the call. We believe the Moderators Committee could do all the work necessary without being a permanent committee. Our vote was 3 in favor of the item, 7 against, and 1 abstaining, with District 5 absent. Thank you.
Lucia Jansen with the BOC report.
Yes, good evening. Lucia Jansen. Before I talk about the call item, I just wanted to welcome on behalf of the BOC all the new RTM members and those returning. And if you haven't seen the flyer outside, we are having an inaugural basic budget workshop January 29 from 7 to 9 p.m. and we hope you can attend. There are some changes out there on how the materials and resources, and we hope to bring you a lot of really good information. Okay, so the call item number 6. First, I'd like to thank the technology group that exists today. They have done a terrific job. Many of us on the committee come from a technology background, so the question was not, is there a technology committee? It was really in what form does it come in? The biggest question was the moderator, if he was going to be reappointing the committee in the first place. And as I had personally written to the moderator confirmed, as he has done for the past 22 years, this technology group would be returning, and as long as there are volunteers interested, this committee continues to serve the RTM. We were remiss last month in inviting the two stakeholders that would be most impacted with this technology group. So we had Tom Klein of the IT as well as the town clerk's office. They did a terrific job in describing their roles, responsibilities, who they report to, and it was very clear that the RTM reports to the town clerk interfaces with the IT department. The budget resides with the town clerk. So when we initiate ideas and have innovations that we'd like to implement, it is a discussion with the town clerk's office, and then it will be considered and put into the CIP process just as anything else, which works very well. It has in the past. We'd also had the governance committee members, the officers, Alexis Vulgaris and Josh Brown, and they went through their very good points as to why the governance committee had denied this or did not pursue it. And so it was pretty obvious to the committee by a vote of 0-12-0, unanimously wanting to keep the committee as it is today, as a special advisory committee. And that was our call. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucy Von Brockel, Secretary of our Land Use Committee.
Hi, I'm unexpectedly filling in and forgot my reading glasses, so bear with me. Bob Brady was present at the Land Use Committee last Monday to explain the proposed amendments. The Land Use Committee had voted on this in December in favor of the Technology Committee, but we voted on it again after some discussion. A lot of the same questions and comments that came up here. The committee's vote was 7-2. District 2 was absent. Districts 7 and 11 voted no because of some of the basically the resistance from some town stakeholder departments, and because some people felt we didn't totally understand all of the concerns because we didn't hear the opposing arguments. That's it.
Thank you. Alexis Vulgaris as chair of our governance committee.
The governance committee, the committee that just keeps going on. So I just wanted to give you an update of why we, as the governance committee, elected not to pursue this. So it's really two options. You stay the course that you've had for 22 years, or you become a permanent special committee. In 2018, we invited Bob Brady, the chair of TAG, to one of our meetings. He spoke with us for about an hour, and we learned a couple of things, or through our research we learned a couple of things, and this is why we decided not to recommend it as a permanent special committee. We did a 10-year look back of all the calls, and in that 10-year look back, we could not identify one item that would have been appropriate for this committee to be referred. As you know, most committees, whether they're special or standing, take up call items. That did not appear to be the case. And there would be no budgets to review. So if you think of the IT department, that falls under town services, or it falls under finance. It would not be falling under an additional committee. So between no budgets and no call items, there was very weak support for making it a permanent committee. The other thing, and this is probably the biggest factor for us, was we all agree that you need to have good technology and you want as many people engaged in that process as possible. So if you leave it as an advisory group, you can leverage people who are members versus non-members. And if you think of, I've used this example a lot, so I apologize, but if you think of the Labor Contracts Committee, which is always looking for that elusive actuary that doesn't appear to be within the 230-member body, that's restrictive. But if you leave it as an advisory group, you have the entire town that you can draw expertise from, which is actually more valuable when you're talking about technology, which is always changing and evolving. So rather than lock yourself in, move to a place where you have more flexibility. And the final thing is, while we used to be under the old, what we'll call the Paul Curtis site, which was 100% volunteer, owned, operated, created. We are now, for better or for worse, under the Civic Plus site, which is a town, owned and operated platform. So while it's true that IT isn't going to handle, who a content steward is and helping us with, very small details, they do have the responsibility for the big thing, which is if our server crashes, we are on their server. So we get rebooted just like everybody else. So it's not like we are a technological island. So for all of those reasons, the governance committee elected to take a pass on that. You may recall that we did recommend one committee, which is still floating out there, which is our capital project review committee. I know that's a separate subject, but for those reasons, we did not elect to move this forward as a permanent special committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bergweger.
The Legislative and Rules Committee moves to refer this item back to the Technology Advisory Group to be brought back to the RTM at the March 2020 meeting.
All right, that being offered on behalf of one of our committees, it does not require a second and is currently before us. Discussion on that motion. Bob Brady, Chair of the Technology Advisory Group.
Good evening again. On the referral, I propose that it be amended to refer it to the Legislative and Rules Committee with the expectation that it would designate one or two people to work on cleaning up the language to be brought back in March. I think that there are probably some of the former members of TAG who would be willing to spend some time on that. If that would have the advantage of it being referred to a body which is part of the RTM, whereas TAG is a very amorphous group right now and it's not even clear who's on it. And it's never really been formally established. It's a loose aggregation. So I would suggest that amendment to the resolution and to formalize it.
All right. So we would need a motion. We would need a motion to amend the Legislative and Rules Committee motion to refer, changing the target of the referral. I understand Legislative and Rules has no objection to having it referred back. Is that correct, Mr. Bergweger? All right.
I so propose that amendment.
So we do need a member to do that. Will a member please? All right, a member has moved and seconded a motion to amend this motion to refer. Is there any objection to changing the referring group from the Technology Advisory Group to our Legislative and Rules Committee? Is there any objection to that change? That may be adopted upon unanimous consent. All right, discussion on the motion to refer item 6 back to the Legislative and Rules Committee. Ms. Vulgaris?
So I would just, I think we've bounced this idea around for quite a while. I think enough committees have heard what they need to hear, and I think that sending it back so that it can get beaten around some more, I would prefer to see the referral not go through and we just take an up or down vote this evening and be done with it one way or the other.
Further discussion on the motion to refer, item 6. Will the district chairs please mark your voting cards? Motion to refer item 6 to Legislative and Rules and proceed to poll your delegation. We will need to await the result of this vote before we can finally dispose of item 6. If this fails, if this motion to refer fails, we will then have to take a final vote on item 6. If it passes, obviously it will be gone from our agenda tonight. So what we will do is we will continue to move on while this vote is being taken, and if the motion to refer fails, we will come back and take up item 6 again. All right, I do have some results here. Item number 4 as amended. This was our schedule. Those With those amendments that we made, those in favor 188, opposed 3, abstaining 1. That item has carried. The consent calendar items 5 and 8. Those in favor 199, opposed 0, abstaining 0. The consent calendar items have carried. Now, I understand what, so we are voting currently on the motion to refer item 6. Ms. Jansen informed you that the BOC is planning a session on budget procedures for later this month. Would either Ms. Jansen or Mr. Basham, if you're aware of the particulars, there's a new procedure for getting budget materials, hard copies of budget materials. Are either one of you familiar with that could explain it to the members? All right, Lucia Jansen. So please pay attention to this. It used to be that everybody would get a hard copy of the proposed budget in the beginning, because it's such an expense. The town is hoping to save money. If you want one, you'll get one, but let's hear the particulars.
Well, the moderator actually just gave the particulars. There isn't much more to that. It is really a trend that is occurring with all of our budget documents, which is to have them default available online, and with a formal request asking for a hard copy version is when you get a paper version. So for some of us who are familiar with the operations plan, which is a town charter requirement, that also is online. You have to request it if you want a hard copy. The Board of Ed budget book, same thing. So this is really following in the pattern that is the situation. By law, the town does have to offer it in paper if you so request. There is a deadline, which I think it's by today, it said, so tonight. So if you have not done so when you get through with the meeting tonight, to the town clerk has also clarified that the hard copy currently is for the district and the committee chairs only. When the BET creates the proposed budget in April, the full body will then get the hard copy if you have requested it.
I'm sorry, what was that last part? If what?
If you've,
I thought everybody was going to get that.
You're going to get the RTM pages?
Yes. The rest?
Yeah.
All right. Because at our May budget meeting, we work off a hard copy, and my understanding was everyone will get that. You don't have to request that. There are other parts of that with more material that you would have to request. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So there was a deadline. Could we just clarify that? If you want tomorrow?
It's tomorrow, and there is a web link that was sent out. It should have been distributed. And that web link, you fill out your personal information, and you are validating you want a hard copy version, again, for district and committee chairs.
All right, so that's January 22nd. I heard someone say the 24th. Apparently not. Apparently it's the 22nd.
It's the 22nd.
That you must
That's what it said on the
make
website.
that request.
Right. This really speaks to our workshop, the 29th. I hope you can attend.
All right, let me check on the status of our vote. All right, let us continue. Item 7 now comes before us. May we have the resolution on that item? Gene McLaughlin, Assistant Town Attorney, with the resolution on item 7.
Mr. Moderator, members of the representative town meeting, item 7 on your call is resolved. The first selectman is authorized to sign all grant agreements related to the Connecticut Department of Transportation, CONDOT, local bridge program, substantially in the form attached in the explanatory
comments to this call. This is the same as appears on the call.
Thank
of
you.
this
Will member please move the adoption of the resolution? Resolution on item 7 has been moved and seconded. May we have the reports of the committees that considered this? Beginning with Kip Bergweger with the Legislative and Rules Committee report.
Again, we considered this on last Monday. At this part of the meeting, we had representatives from all 12 districts. We were also helped by James Michael, Deputy Commissioner of Public Works, and Eugene McCarthy, Assistant Town Attorney. The town receives grants and funds from the state for certain public works. This particular matter deals with bridges. In order to get funds from the state, the town has had to sign up a master agreement. The master agreement is signed by every community in the state so that you can't negotiate it. If you can't work with it, you don't get any funds. There was a problem in that our charter doesn't allow us to agree to indemnify without any other provision. So the workaround on that was to get insurance, self-insurance and indemnity insurance to cover the town in case there's some problem with the work on a project, and the cost of that insurance currently is $30,000 a year, and it's procured by risk management. Now the item 7 is an agreement that the town has to sign if it wants to receive reimbursement for bridges that are 20 feet long or shorter. And we have some 63 bridge projects either underway or planned for the future. And the state will cover between 10% and 100% of the cost, but in this case, generally about 50%. So the question is, can the first selectman sign this standard form? You have to sign on one for every single bridge. And this proposal, or this item, authorizes that signatures if the agreement is in accordance with or substantially in accordance with the form of stated document that is attached to the explanos. So we had some concerns, members of our committee had some concerns. One district was concerned that authorizing the first selectman to sign any contract and expenditures would be exposing the town to unknown obligations. But the answer to that is that the standard form has to, whatever the new form will be, has to comply and be substantial conformance to the document that we're approving as attached in the explanos. So there is a limitation on what can be signed. There's also concern that the annual premiums on the insurance would be excessive, but it was explained that, again, this is obtained by risk management. This is the kind of insurance that our town experts are obtaining. There was a question, who signs off on the forms? Is Public Works signing off on them? And it was answered, no, the law department has reviewed this. So after thinking this over, we voted 12-0-0 on legal order and 12-0-0 on the merits.
Thank you. Michael Spilo with Public Works Committee report.
We heard from James Michael, Deputy Commissioner of Public Works. Also present was Amy Siebert, Commissioner of Public Works. Mr. Michael indicated that this item was a follow-up to previous items that have come before the RTM in September of 2018. Those were items 6, 7, and 8 on the call at that time, which were the approval of master agreements, which cover all construction, various construction projects that get reimbursed from the state. When the state reimburses a construction project, they require a separate agreement with the state, and this was a master form of the agreement that the town approves for use in these situations. The item 7 coming before us now is a continuation of that, specifically for bridges that are under 20 feet, which are handled separately from the other construction projects that we passed in 2018. There's also the issue of insurance, which is really an issue of covering the state with an indemnification and covering the indemnification with insurance, and the insurance policy only covers up to $3 million, so it's not particularly expensive. In any event, each bridge and construction project will be appear before us in the budget as a separate line item, and the RTM will have the opportunity to vote yea or nay on construction projects at budget time, as we can in any event. Our vote was 12-0-0 in favor of this form of the agreement and the item.
Thank you. Kimberly Salib with the Transportation Committee report.
The Transportation Committee also had Jim Michael speak to us, and we voted 10-0-0 with districts 2 and 6 absent.
Mike Basham, Chair of our Finance Committee.
The item 7 was not on our agenda, but we were encouraged to take it up, so we voted 12-0-0 to do that. Our discussion centered around our concerns that was, by the way, I should emphasize there was no one there really to explain some of the details of this to us, and our concerns centered around the possibility that somehow this might circumvent the RTM's ability to review and approve grants. So we voted 12-0-0 to reject it as presented in the call. Subsequent to that vote, I did have discussions with Jim Michael, Deputy Commissioner of Public Works, who filled me in on the specifics of this. We had a meeting earlier this evening where Ed McLaughlin joined us and explained it in more detail to the committee. As a result of that, laying our concerns, we voted 12-0-0 to accept the item as presented in the call.
Thank you. Discussion on item 7. Will the district chairs please mark your voting cards, item number 7, and proceed to poll your delegation. I have the result of that pending motion to refer item 6 to legislative and rules. Those in favor, 45. Opposed, 149. Abstaining, 0. That motion to refer has failed. All right, so item 6 is now back before us. Further discussion on item 6. Well, I had some speaker sign-ups. Mr. Spilo, did you care to speak on this, to be followed by Carl Higbee?
I'll be brief. As a former member of this technology advisory group in one of its previous incarnations, it's been around since 1996. It is been not particularly helpful, hasn't shown any particular technology implementation that has worked well, and has tried some technology implementations that have worked very poorly, like the old RTM website, which was very insecure and resulted in a lot of spam. I think that my personal view is that they should demonstrate some efficacy before we make them permanent.
Carl Higbee, District 8.
Hey, so I'm kind of new to this, but this technology thing sounded great when someone's like, hey, let's upgrade Town Hall and all the things associated with it, and someone handed me a fax number, so I said, okay. I looked into this, and I asked about 36 people, what the heck is this? What are we voting on? What does a committee do? And nobody could actually explain what this committee is intended to do. So therefore it appears worthless, like most things in government. So we have we're literally taking a vote by government to expand government to address a problem that we really actually don't have. And I've had, a number of people say, well, it's to add minutes to the RTM website or whatever. And right now, I believe the town clerk takes care of that, or should take care of it. But if, and I'd say to Fred up here in front, if we have somebody addressing the town website that can't take 20 minutes a week to put up the meeting minutes, fire them. Do your job. It seems overly simple. We don't need a government committee to tell us what we might think that we should do to solve a problem that we don't have. So I vote no.
Further discussion on item 6. Will the district chairs please mark your voting cards? Item number 6, if you are in favor of creating a technology committee, you vote yes. If you are opposed, you vote no. While we, let's see. All right. While we are voting on that, we will take up our final item of the evening. That is item 9. May we have the resolution on that item? Pat Sesto, our Conservation Director.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator and members of the RTM.
All right, hold on. We're going to conduct this vote quietly, and we're going to pay attention to the speaker, please.
Resolve the proposed ordinance to create an Energy Commission dated December 1, 2019 be adopted as it appears on the call.
Will the member please move the adoption of the resolution? Resolution on item 9 has been moved and seconded. May we have the reports of the committees that considered this item? Do we have any committee reports? Kip Bergweger, Chair of our Legislative and Rules Committee.
We had Pat Sesto, Director of Environmental Affairs, to help us on this matter. It is working. It is an outgrowth of action set forth in item 54 in the POCD. It's aimed at fiscal issues and the basic work. It will devise actions to cut energy 20%. Our goal is to cut energy consumption by 20% in the short term, 40% in the long term. These goals have been around for at least a decade, and we're nowhere close to achieving them, at least we were told. And so it's time to look at this and see what we might do differently. Towns in the state that have actually achieved their goals do have energy commissions. Many without energy commissions have not advanced to their goals. And so this is a technical field. The commission would focus the town's efforts on energy in a meaningful way. This would not cost the town anything that the town should not be spending. The commission, we're told, will have 7 members from the community and 7 ex officios who will also have voting rights. Members of our committee noted that not only should be auditing energy consumption of buildings, which was the primary focus, but also lighting in streets and that sort of thing. We focused on milestones and goals so that the work of the commission can be evaluated. There's a provision in the proposed ordinance to send back, to make reports, and we wanted to be sure that those reports had tangible results. Pat Sesto did say that there's been coordination with Al Manelli of Public Works and A.B. Siebert, Commissioner of Public Works, and the Law Department, Amina Ahmad, who is also there to help us on this matter. we talked a little bit about where this would belong in the code, and Ms. Ahmad assured us that the law department would see to that proper disposition, and I just received some explanations by email this afternoon, which does identify where in the code it would go. We did have 2 votes to amend the provision in the ordinance, which were approved 11-0-0, and then our vote on merits as amended was 11-0-0. No, wait a minute, hold on, I'm sorry. It was 9-1-1. District 5 voted no, District 1 abstained. And I will propose the amendment at the appropriate time.
Thank you. All right. At this point, before I call for the next report, I do want to alleviate some concerns by some people who think I'm going to forget that there's a second reading requirement. Our rules, since this is a proposed ordinance, our rules mandate that we cannot take a final dispositive vote absent a 2/3 majority to do so. This would automatically be put over to our next meeting for what we call a second reading. And if you look at the rule that we adopted, it specifically provides for actively working on the item the first time it comes before us. So that is why we're getting committee reports. We can have discussion, we can amend it, and get it in shape for that second reading. So that's the process we are undertaking now. Mike Basham, did you want to go with the Finance Committee report?
We took this up Monday evening, and Pat Sesto was there, the Director of Environmental Affairs, to fill us in on the proposal. We all voiced overwhelming support for the idea of energy efficiency, both for the town and just for the community at large. We had a reasonably healthy debate. It was the last item we took up, I think, so it was late in the evening. There were a lot of pros and cons, but given the mandatory second read on the rules, we opted not to vote on this issue.
Michael Spilo with the Public Works Committee report.
We heard from Patricia Sesto. Also present was Erling Cyril, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, of the Energy Committee. Ms. Sesto explained the need for energy conservation and indicated she felt Greenwich was not doing enough in this area and that an energy commission would be helpful, although we already have an energy committee. Ms. Sesto told us about the Energize CT program covering 131 towns, including Greenwich, who signed, these towns signed a pledge for energy reduction. Ms. Sesto provided some numbers which she felt indicate that the towns with an energy committee did a better job meeting their pledge. There was a long Q&A session which raised several issues. First, there were a variety of language issues. One member had as many as 29 specific issues. I won't go into all the details. But one example is a question as to whether this is more properly a charter change than an ordinance. Another is that Section E says the Commission is subject to Article 2, Section 21 of the Charter, but omits the rest of Article 2, including the section regarding submission to the RTM. The meaning of the term executive committee and many other specific language issues. There were also issues with the structure and composition. Again, I won't go into all of it as this is a first reading, but there is no Public Works interface, despite the fact that Public Works is responsible for all building and construction and maintenance in the town outside of the Board of Ed. And there is an unusual inclusion of the Nathaniel Witherell as an independent entity on this board. Also unusual is voting of ex officio members, which in this case would include the vote of the town administrator, who is a town employee and not a Greenwich resident. There's issues with regarding to the board. Boards and commissions are normally volunteer positions and not paid, and that was not mentioned. Several other such issues with the structure and composition of the board. Lastly, there were issues with regards to the focus. The focus of the board is very narrow in terms of it's very focused on energy savings with specific goals laid out in the ordinance, which is unusual. But most importantly, the committee is not tasked to evaluate costs or other impacts of energy saving measures which could affect whether we want to implement them or not. And an example would be a reduction in square footage at schools is very useful to save energy, but not necessarily conducive to education. Ms. Sesto also indicated she would research these issues and get back to our committee. Ms. Sesto provided a document with some Q&A, but the document did not address the majority of the questions raised. After Ms. Sesto, we spoke briefly to Ms. Siebert, who is a Commissioner of Public Works, and she indicated that Public Works tries to optimize energy use in town buildings, but that she felt it might be useful to have some panel of experts on energy use available for consultation. Discussion with the Public Works Committee took place later in the evening and revolved mainly around the numbers. Ms. Sesto provided a copy of the data that she used to obtain her numbers on the efficacy of various energy committees. And after adding Greenwich and the rest of Fairfield County, it turns out that 75% of the towns in the state had an energy committee, but only 20% of the town achieved any energy savings at all, and only 2 towns out of the 131 who signed it achieved the 20% reduction. Energize CT effort has been disbanded, and the new effort doesn't have specified goals, which are very hard to achieve when you are already very energy efficient. We also learned that Greenwich has an existing energy committee constituted within the Conservation Commission. This energy committee did conduct an energy audit of Town Hall in 2018 and came up with a 24-page plan. Given the open number of questions on the language and structure, a motion was made to postpone the item to March. It's presumably not necessary, but that motion passed 12-0-0. We took up the item on the merits, and no agreement was reached to specifically what merits we were talking about, though it was generally felt that energy savings were a good goal and should be a focus for the town. The vote on the merits was 6 in favor, 1 opposed, and 5 abstaining. I was the opposing, believing that the existing committee was sufficient and that could be convened under the auspices of the Selectman's office without an ordinance. The 5 members voting to abstain felt they wanted to see the final version of this item before making a decision. Thank you for your patience with a long report.
Thank you. Lucia Jansen with the Budget Overview Committee report.
Good evening. The BOC voted to take up this item given the potential budget impact. We wanted to begin by stating emphatically that we totally agree with the concept of pursuing, both the town and the Board of Ed, the most sustainable, green, energy-saving materials and methods and best practices that are available in a cost-effective manner. We did not have, because we took this up kind of spontaneously, we did not have Pat Sesto, the sponsor of the call item, so we really went by what was written in the explanatory comments. There was just a lot of ambiguity as to where this came from. It seemed to be out of the blue. There are many federal and state regulations around energy usage, energy savings, and so this was a local level of regulation that later was clarified as saying it's not regulatory, it is advisory and educational, which then speaks to why is this a commission that is going through a charter change through an ordinance if it is educational and advisory. The Energy Management Commission, as proposed, does not seem to be properly located in environmental affairs because most energy reduction conservation decisions are made at the point of new construction, remodeling, or equipment replacement. I'd like to note that on our committee, we do have civil engineer and people with construction experience that offered valuable input. If the Energy Commission was to explore potential energy reduction projects outside of the CIP process, there was a concern that a large number of existing capital projects already on the town and Board of Ed slate, this would just create competing project demand in what is already a project overload environment. There was question on the baseline number. It's stated as a 20% savings, but what are we starting from? Because if you look at the last few years, we as a town have expanded our footprint generously. If you look at the Byram Pool building, you look at the new Central Fire Station building, if you look at a number of school buildings that have grown, so we have actually produced larger energy consumption, not less. And we wondered the relationship of the new projects to the existing buildings out there. The ordinance, the proposed ordinance also gives this commission the authority to hire consultants and enter into contracts. And it was unclear where the funds were coming from. It was later written that it was from the office of the first selectman, but this was not in the explanatory comments as to where those funds would be coming from. And it's ambiguous, again, the relationship of approval of these consultants and audit reports and what have you to the CIP process and the prioritization made by the first selectman. The ordinance, the proposed ordinance, refers to energy reduction goals not just for the town, but for the community. The concern was raised about whether this would result in homeowners or builders needing to get Energy Commission approval for projects they wish to undertake, similar to current wetlands approval. So in sum, there were a number of questions, serious questions, and the committee, we did vote on it, although it is a first read, but as it's written in the explanatory comments, the committee vote was 0-10-2, and it would not pass as written in the explanos. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Newman with the Town Services Report.
Town Services took up the item. It was not assigned to us. We took it up by unanimous vote. And because of that, we also did not have anyone presenting to us. We recognize that this will require a second reading and ask that it be assigned to us when it does return. We are supportive of the goal. And speaking of that, I suggest maybe we turn down the heat here tonight and save a little energy. But we do also, we would like to know much more about the possible budget impacts of mentioned consultants and possible contracts. We ask if this should be continue, and we think maybe this should continue to be spearheaded by DPW and not a separate commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bergweger?
The Legislative and Rules Committee voted to amend section or paragraph F under the duties heading. Paragraph F is in form of one sentence, and we added a second sentence which reads, said report shall include tabulations of 1, the energy cost savings obtained during the fiscal year as a result of the actions of the Commission, 2, the cost incurred as a result of the Commission's activities, and 3, energy savings obtained during the fiscal year in terms of greenhouse gas emissions or other appropriate measures. This amendment appears in the report of the Legislative and Rules Committee, which was sent to all members of the committee and hopefully to all members of the various districts.
All right, is everyone familiar with this proposed amendment? All right, Mr. Bergweger, stay with me. Legislative and Rules is proposing to amend the subparagraph F, which appears on the final page of our call, page 5. And that calls for an annual written report. The proposal is to include in the report energy, now I don't have the exact words, but the gist was, Mr. Bergweger, please correct me, energy savings that were achieved as a result of the activities of this commission. That was number 1. Number 2, the cost incurred in achieving those energy savings. And number 3, itemizing the energy savings in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. Does that summarize it, Mr.?
Yeah, gas emissions or other appropriate measures.
Okay. So that is what Legislative and Rules is proposing to add to this item number 9. And since that is offered on behalf of our committee, it does not require a second. Discussion on the proposed amendment? Is there any objection to the proposed amendment? All right, that can be adopted upon unanimous consent. So that motion to amend is adopted. Further discussion on item 9? All right, well, we're not going to vote on this. This will automatically go over to our March meeting pursuant to our rules for a second reading when a proposed ordinance comes before us. I do have the result of the 2 pending votes. Item number 6, that was the proposal to make a standing committee for technology. Those in favor, 64. Opposed, 124. Abstaining, 3. That item has failed. So, if there are any members who are interested in pursuing technology issues and would like to work on that on the basis that we have been doing over the years, please contact me and I will call a meeting of any interested members. I can tell you from experience, from term to term, those efforts depend on someone willing to take the lead and organize the group of volunteers. Failing someone, the effort usually stalls. All right, and then item number 7. This was the grant agreement with the state for the bridge funding. Those in favor, 189. Opposed, 2. Abstaining, 0. That item has carried. Now, I do want to say this. This is likely to be, I'm told, the last meeting of our town attorney, Wayne Fox, who has served us for, what, 14 years, Mr. Fox? What? 15 years. All right, I have worked very closely with Mr. Fox as moderator and as chairman of the Claims Committee, and I know I speak for all the members of the Claims Committee that we are going to miss him dearly. He is a gentleman, he is a scholar, he's well respected by the courts. We are sorry to see him go, and I just would like to recognize his service tonight and we wish you all the best, and we hope our paths cross in the future. All right, there being no further business to come before the meeting, this meeting stands adjourned upon unanimous consent. Thank you all for coming. Have a safe trip home.